The design for the Pacific Highway case study calls for a hero image between the header up here and this article with the ID intro. I'm going to use a figure element without a caption. Removing the caption is easy enough, but the figure doesn't behave as expected because browsers add a default margin. In this lesson, I'll not only show how to remove the default margin, but I'll explain why doing so doesn't affect the right margin in the figure elements that I created down here. This introduces you to a CSS concept known as specificity, which determines which style rule takes precedence when there's a conflict. Let's scroll back up to the top of the page. Now, although the header and this article have both got IDs, when you insert a figure in Dreamweaver, it doesn't give you a dialog box which allows you to determine where to insert it. It always inserts it directly at the insertion point. So we need to make sure that we're in exactly the right place. A very efficient way of putting the insertion point between two elements is to use the tag selector at the bottom of the document window. First, let's open Split View so we can see what is going on. And then I'm going to click inside the article in the heading here, and in the tag selector there it is, article #intro. So if I select that, it selects the whole article, and on my keyboard, if I press the left arrow key once, it deselects the article and it moves the insertion point that you can see here in the code view just outside the article. So it's between the article and the header. So it's where I want. So I can go to the Insert panel, select Figure, and the figure and fig caption are inserted. Just delete the placeholder text for the figure, and then go to the Insert menu, Image, Image. The image I want is coast.jpg. Select that, and it inserts it. Let's just scroll down to find the caption. Need to scroll horizontally as well. Put my cursor inside the placeholder text for the caption, then select Fig Caption in the tag selector and press Delete, and it's gone. But because I've removed the caption, I need to add some alternate text. So select the image, and in the Alt field in the Property Inspector, insert some alternate text. I'm going to put in a blanket of fog hovers offshore on the coastal highway. Now, as I was typing, you might have noticed that nothing was happening in this Alt attribute in the image. And the reason for that is when you type anything in one of the fields in the Property Inspector, it isn't inserted into the underlying HTML until the focus moves elsewhere. So you can either press Tab or just click away. And now that Alt attribute has been filled in with the text that I wrote into the Property Inspector. So let's close Split View. And I'm going to turn on Live View, but before doing so I think it'd be a good idea to get rid of the panel, so I'll press F4 and then click Live to turn on Live View. Now, when I turned on Live View, you probably noticed that the image has jumped to the right. And if I scroll to the right, you can see that it's actually spilling out of the wrapper. It's no longer aligned to the left edge of the wrapper here. That's because Live View, like a browser, adds a default margin to a figure element. So let's bring back the panels with F4 and then just close the Insert panel. And in CSS Designer I'll select highway.css, need to add a new selector. It'll be Figure. And then in the Layout section, Margin, click the icon in the center to change all properties to the same value and set it to 0. And the figure has now jumped back into the correct position. But let's scroll down and see what has happened to the figure elements lower down. The 20 pixel margin on the right hand side has been preserved. Why? Well, the simple answer is that this style rule here, figure, affects all figures, so it removes the margins, it sets them to 0. But this style rule up here is a descendant selector that affects only figures inside an element with the class teaser. And the point about this is that a descendant selector takes precedence over a type or tag name selector. As a result, the 20 pixel right margin is preserved on figure elements, but only if they're inside an element with the class teaser. Understanding which style rules take precedence can be difficult to understand. I explain it in greater detail in the lesson on resolving conflicting styles in the Diving Deeper into CSS chapter.